I'm a US citizen who's lived in Singapore for the entirety of 2021. Does that qualify me as a bona fide resident of Singapore? Does that mean that I can travel back to the US for more than 35 days in 2022 without incurring additional taxes? So, right. So just to create context, the most attractive benefit of a US person being a US person outside of the US is, of course, the foreign and income exclusion, which is under Section 911. There are two ways of qualifying for that. One will be the bona fide residence test, and another is a physical presence test. And this allows you to exclude, you still declare the money, but it won't be subject to federal taxes. It moves up with inflation each year. For 2021, I think it's like 112,000. So when you put in that 112,000 plus your standard deduction, assuming you're married, which is maybe 25,000, plus your housing, assuming that you're renting. So it could be as much as $160,000 that you report, but it won't be subject to US taxes. So this is a really important benefit. So as we mentioned, there are two ways of qualifying: the bona fide residence test and the physical presence. The physical presence is objective and quantifiable, and it's quantitative. The bona fide residence test is subjective and qualitative. So I'll start with the easy one, which is a PPT, the physical presence test. By virtue of you basically staying out of the US and not being in US airspace for more than 35 days, you qualify to exclude that income as we previously mentioned, right? So that is just a pure days test, remaining outside of the US and not being in US airspace for more than that aforementioned number of days. The bona fide residence test was one you asked specifically about, and I know why you're asking, because it is subjective and it is qualitative. You know, it's not black and white. It is a test of intent, if you will. Where's your heart? Where's your center of life? And by the questions on Form 2555, they're challenging you to demonstrate that your center of life has moved outside of the US, and you have done so for full calendar year from Jan to December. So if it is under this circumstance that you described, that you've been out of the US and you have been a bona fide resident of Singapore from Jan to December in 2021, then, and you've continued to do so flowing into 2022, yes, you're absolutely correct. So you're not bound by the strict quantitative provisions of the PPT, the physical presence test. So you can spend a little bit more time in the US, but we're talking about shades of gray, right? Your center of life must remain in Singapore. But to answer your question, yes. The question is, now your follow-up question is, I'm not seeing you typing, but your follow-up question might be how many days. That's a test of facts and circumstances. So you need to speak with your advisor on that. But basically, yes, you can spend more than 35 days, generally speaking, in the US without losing your foreign earned income exclusion. I hope that helps.
So if you're a 6, 7, or 8-figure investor, entrepreneur, or business owner who needs a tailor-made solution from a qualified team of professionals, we can help you achieve the international lifestyle, the freedom, and even the tax savings you're looking for. Visit us at htj.tax and live that international life.